In this video, I'm going to create some AR, augmented reality type, using an image anchor. In this case, I used an X, and then placing some items on top of it. Here I am in Adobe Aero, just setting up the file. You can see the image anchor on the bottom, and then I'm going to bring this into Adobe Aero, and then work with it, and you can see the final result. All right, so let's get started. In Adobe Illustrator, the first thing we're going to do is create the letter that we want to use as an image anchor. I'm just going to use an X, just size it up. And as I create this image anchor, one thing to keep in mind is these anchors will work best if there's like some detail, maybe different colors or something in the image anchor. Something like a flat square wouldn't really be a great image anchor because there's not a lot of detail and it's harder to track that. So I'm going to take this letter and then maybe go and outline it so you can see that letter, create outlines, and from there maybe just draw these little squares and put them on here just to add a little bit more detail. I think it also makes the image or the letter a little bit more interesting, but these are helpful for tracking when we move over into augmented reality. All right, so I'm going to export this out as an image that, or I could just print this out if I was going to use it on a piece of paper, or, if I was going to have this on a screen or something, I could just export this to use as an image anchor. I'm going to just go in here too and use the Pathfinder to cut these out of the letter. That way, when I start making copies of this, it'll have those cuts in it. And I created different layers in here so that I can have different layers to that augmented reality experience. I'm imagining this kind of being separated layers that exist on top of the actual letter. So I might go and change the color for one. I'm just going to make a copy of this and put it on the next layer. Change the color, and then I'm going to go ahead and start making some cuts out of this. So I'm just trying to make variations on the X, and then I'll layer them on top of each other. And I'm kind of just doing this on the fly. I probably should have planned this design out a little bit more, but I just wanted to showcase this technique and just make something with a few different layers and show how to use an image anchor in Adobe Aero. Here you can see the two different shapes that I've made. I'll put that back. And then I'll move on to the next layer and maybe make something that's smaller. I guess I'm going to just make some of these blue squares. So again, just adding elements on top of that letter. I go up to the next layer and maybe change the color here to yellow and draw some more shapes. This layer will be on top of these blue squares. I'll make some smaller ones. And then I'll create one more layer, and maybe I'll just put these little X's on top. So I'm just going to grab that same typeface and just make these smaller X's and just scatter them all over this. All right, and once that's done, I'm going to export this as a Photoshop file. So we'll go into here, hit the PSD, and I'm just going to rename this. And we do want to make sure that when we export this out, we check right layers and that we preserve this maximum editability so that those layers can be read. And then we're going to open up a new Aero file. We'll use the image anchor project type. We can use that X that we created originally as the anchor. Now, I'm going to later show an issue that came about from using this, but I'm just going to use this to help me line this up and kind of prototype what this is going to look like. So we can go and select the move tool and just get this to really line up with it. If you need to rotate around here, you can go to the pan tool and pan around it. Once I have that lined up, I can go and go to the layer spacing, and I'm gonna go into the Z-axis and pull that, pull the numbers until I get the spacing that I like. And this is pretty far apart, but you can see that each layer has been put on its own plane, basically. And this is how I want to preview this in the app. So I'll open this up on my phone and take a look at this after I make just a few more adjustments. Here I'm just looking at it in preview mode. So earlier I mentioned an issue with using the image, digital file as an image anchor in the Adobe Aero experience. So what I discovered is that this file didn't quite work, and it couldn't find the image to really attach the anchor to. So the solution was taking a photo of that anchor. I printed it out on a piece of paper, and I guess, it might have been the contrast, or, just things weren't lining up just quite right. So what I did is take a photo of this image that I printed out, and I'm using that as the image anchor. Now, when I first bring it in, the size isn't quite right. But I just scale it down to match up with the graphics that I have on top. And here's the Adobe Aero experience on my mobile app, and you can see this is able to find the image anchor and attach itself. So this fixed the problem of using that digital file as the image anchor. Now, you might want to do it to just kind of set your file up, but then if you're having issues with image recognition, then this is a workaround for that. If you remember my original file, all the layers, all the pieces on one layer were on the same layer, so there wasn't as much separation. Now, one other thing you could do to add more depth to these pieces is to go in, and I've simplified this design. I've just kind of taken the X's here, and I'm gonna go select this layer and then go up to the layer panel options and go to Release to layers. Now there are two different options here. One is going to be release layers to sequence. It's just going to give separate all these assets onto their own layers. The other one is release layers to build. And what that does is it sort of adds all these together. So the first X is only one X. The second layer is going to be two X's, and then three X's and four X's, all the way up to the final amount. So in this example, I used release to layers build, and you can see that all of these kind of got stacked up. And so the one, I wanted them actually kind of each one separately on its own layer, but it actually added them all together. So if I go into release layers sequence, then now each one is it's on its own layer. And I'm just gonna take these and drag these above the original layer just so that they're all on their own layer, and then I'll go and save this out as a Photoshop file and bring it into Adobe Aero. And this method's going to look a little bit nicer when we go and separate this, and we want depth separation in between all these X's. I've separated this out, and I'm playing with the layer spacing, but you can see that each one now occupies its own place in Z space.